When Katy Perry boarded a Blue Origin rocket for an 11-minute trip to the edge of space, the mainstream media didn't just report on it, they exploded with praise. Headlines from ABC News to CBS gushed over what they called a historic all-female spaceflight, labeling it a milestone for women in science, space exploration, and gender equality. But here's the thing. They didn't pilot anything. They didn't conduct any experiments. And they weren't astronauts by any traditional definition. These were hand-picked celebrities, pop stars, influencers, and media personalities, invited onto what many are calling a glorified space-themed amusement ride designed not for exploration, but for headlines. The coverage wasn't just celebratory, it was practically worshipful. Outlets claimed the mission represented a giant leap for womankind, hailing Katy Perry and Gayle King as modern-day pioneers. Perry even knelt and kissed the Texas desert ground like she'd just returned from a Mars colony. The visuals were theatrical, the sound bites were scripted, and the narrative, over the top. But while the media framed this as a scientific turning point, the internet saw something very different. Social media erupted, not in celebration, but in mockery. Memes, parodies, and sarcastic posts flooded Twitter and TikTok. People weren't inspired, they were confused. They were asking, is this what we're calling history now? In a world where real astronauts train for years, risk their lives, and contribute to major scientific breakthroughs, this short, choreographed 11-minute flight by a group of Botoxed influencers felt less like progress and more like performance. The so-called historic mission was starting to look more like a publicity stunt with designer jumpsuits. And that's where this story begins, because the deeper you dig, the faker it looks. While the media tried to crown this event as groundbreaking, the general public had one overwhelming response: laughter. Online reaction was instant and brutal. Instead of praise, the mission was met with a tidal wave of memes, satire, and outright ridicule. Twitter users compared the Blue Origin rocket to Dr. Evil's spaceship from Austin Powers, mocking its unmistakably phallic design and theatrical presentation. Even Katy Perry's quote, "I put the ass in astronaut," became a punchline rather than a moment of empowerment. And the idea that these celebrities were somehow blazing a trail for women in STEM, that only added fuel to the fire. People questioned what exactly was accomplished during this flight. Did anything get discovered? Did anything get tested? Was this really about space? Or was it just about selfies? And then came the comparisons. Real astronauts like Mae Jemison, Sally Ride, and Christina Koch. Women who trained for years, conducted experiments in orbit, and risked their lives on actual missions. Against that backdrop, this 11-minute ride with Katy Perry tossing toys around in zero gravity felt embarrassingly hollow. It wasn't just that the internet found the mission silly, it was that they found it inauthentic. Even fans of the celebrities involved began questioning the intentions. Was this really for female empowerment or just another photo op to stay relevant? But it gets worse. Because the more people watched the footage, the more they noticed something strange, something that didn't quite add up. Was this mission even real? Or are we looking at one of the biggest space-age hoaxes of our time? Once the initial headlines faded and people started actually watching the footage, something felt off. For starters, the most critical part of the journey, the actual flight through space, was curiously absent. While the live stream showed the rocket launch and interior shots of the capsule, the moment it passed the atmosphere, the camera feed conveniently cut to a closed interior view. No exterior shots, no dramatic views of Earth, no real-time visuals of the capsule hurtling through space. For a historic mission, it looked suspiciously incomplete. Then came the moment that raised everyone's eyebrows. When the capsule landed, the women themselves opened the door from the inside, clearly showing it was unlocked and functional. But just as they cracked it open, a staffer told them to stop. Moments later, Jeff Bezos, sporting a skin-tight muscle shirt and wielding a wrench, arrived to theatrically rescue them cowboy style. Viewers were baffled. If the women could open the door on their own, why did Bezos need to show up with a wrench? Why the dramatic pause? Was this a real mechanical delay? or a scripted moment designed to make Bezos look like a spacefaring savior. And that's not all. The footage of the flight itself was oddly edited. In a mission where the crew had just 4 minutes in zero gravity, you'd expect awe, wonder, maybe some silence to soak in the view of Earth. Instead, the video showed Katy Perry and the crew playing with plush toys, taking selfies, and tossing flowers midair, like it was a promo shoot for a skincare line. Even the reactions felt scripted. "Oh my God, the blue line," one of them gasped, while the rest gushed over the moon through the window, instead of looking out and absorbing the moment. Think about it. You're in space for 240 seconds. You've just achieved something millions only dream of. Would you spend that precious time playing with novelty props and posing for the perfect boomerang? Or would you just stare out at the Earth in awe? But that's what makes this even more strange. Because there's one moment, just one, that might have accidentally exposed the entire thing. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. By now, even casual observers were starting to ask, how much of this mission was real and how much was manufactured? It wasn't just the oddly timed door opening or the suspicious lack of external footage. People began zooming in on the whole aesthetic, the plastic-like perfection of it all. From the women's appearance to the promotional material, everything screamed manufactured image over meaningful achievement. Online commentators joked that the rocket wasn't the only artificial thing on screen. "There's more filler in that capsule than rocket fuel," one viewer quipped. The hair, the Botox, the glowing skin, all polished to perfection. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with looking your best, this was supposed to be a space mission, not a Vogue cover shoot. But the criticisms didn't stop at appearances. The internet started picking apart the footage like digital detectives, and something truly suspicious emerged. The entire mission felt less like a real-time event and more like a pre-edited commercial. The cuts were too clean, the angles too flattering. And where was the raw, unfiltered footage? Where were the body cam shots? The shaky GoPro moments? The real human reactions to seeing Earth from space? Instead, we got soft lighting, curated sound bites, and celebrities giggling over floating plushies. It didn't look like history. It looked like a content drop. Even the ending felt off. Katy Perry kissed the ground upon landing. Dramatic, yes, but oddly performative. Then came the press quotes. "I feel connected to love. I want to learn more about STEM. And this changed my life." All delivered like they were written by a PR intern. And just when people thought the spectacle couldn't get any more absurd, a single freeze frame moment started going viral, a frame that looked just a little too perfect, a little too animated. Could it be CGI? Was any of this even filmed in real time? Or are we looking at a green-screened fantasy sold to us as fact? At this point, people weren't just questioning the footage. They were questioning the entire premise. According to Blue Origin's own documentation, the New Shepard rocket is designed as a suborbital vehicle. That means it doesn't actually go into orbit. It simply crosses the Kármán line about 62 miles up, which technically counts as space, hovers for a few minutes in microgravity, and then free falls back to Earth. Total flight time? 11 minutes. Time and actual weightlessness? 4. Even artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT have described Blue Origin's tourist flights as a fancy roller coaster to space and back. And honestly, that might be generous. There's no scientific research involved, no experiments, no piloting, no docking. The capsule is fully automated. All you have to do is buckle in, float for a few minutes, and smile for the camera. It's the space equivalent of a Disneyland ride, but with designer jumpsuits and an influencer marketing budget. And yet the media sold it as a milestone for women in space. Meanwhile, actual astronauts, women who train for years, survive dangerous missions, and conduct life-saving research aboard the International Space Station, were barely mentioned. Instead, we got Katy Perry throwing around flowers and Gayle King cheering like she just rode Space Mountain. It's not space exploration. It's space simulation, wrapped in blue velvet and sponsored by Jeff Bezos. And here's the twist. While everyone was praising this empowering moment, a few sharp-eyed viewers noticed something buried in the footage. A glitch, a lighting inconsistency, a frame jump that didn't match the rest of the broadcast. And once people noticed it, the fake space theory exploded. At first, it was just a few people on Reddit and Twitter. Someone paused the footage at the right frame and spotted something strange. A flicker, a frame skip, a moment where Katy Perry's arm seemed to blur, not like motion blur, but like a rendering glitch. Others quickly joined the hunt, scrubbing through the video frame by frame. The more they looked, the more they found. Lighting inconsistencies, shadows that didn't track, objects that appeared and disappeared from one angle to the next. It wasn't just suspicious. It felt manipulated. And then came the comparisons. Some users began placing side-by-side clips of Blue Origin's older missions, which featured more rugged, raw footage, grainy cockpit shots, unflattering lighting, moments of visible discomfort. This Katy Perry mission? It looked too good, too perfect. Almost like it was filmed before the launch. Why did the door need to be reopened for dramatic effect? Why was the wrench necessary if the internal release already worked? And why were multiple camera crews conveniently in place to capture the moment from multiple cinematic angles? People online quickly called it what it was, a staged publicity shot. A man with the world's most expensive toy trying to look like humanity's savior. But the message it sent? Even in this supposedly empowering all-female mission, it still ended with a rich man swooping in to save the day. And here's where it gets even more surreal. This wasn't the first time Bezos has done this exact performance. Rewatch his previous Blue Origin launches, William Shatner, Michael Strahan, even Bezos' own flight. And you'll start to see a pattern. Every single one ends with Bezos front and center, often wielding a prop, commanding the moment, soaking in the glory. It's not space tourism, it's brand building. And this moment with Katy Perry and the all-female crew? It was the crescendo of a well-rehearsed narrative, Bezos as the architect of modern exploration. And the media too distracted to call it out. But that rescue wasn't the only part that seemed overly produced. Because behind the scenes, something even more manufactured was happening, and this time, it wasn't caught by cameras. It was broadcast live. And what one Blue Origin host said during that live stream? It shocked mothers, feminists, and even NASA veterans. While the cameras were focused on Katy Perry floating through space and Jeff Bezos making his cinematic cowboy entrance, the most controversial moment of the entire mission was actually happening off-screen, during the live commentary. Blue Origin's live stream featured a host named Kristen Ann Fisher, the daughter of legendary NASA astronaut Dr. Anna Lee Fisher. On paper, it seemed like the perfect choice. A woman with a legacy in real spaceflight, offering insight into a mission about women making history. But then she said something that stunned viewers. She told the story of how her mother was chosen for a NASA mission while 8 months pregnant and that she had something to prove as a woman. At first glance, it sounded empowering until you stopped to think about what was really being said. Had something to prove? To many, especially mothers watching live, this felt deeply offensive. The implication? That being a mother, creating life, raising a child, and building a family isn't enough. That to be respected as a woman, you also have to go to space while carrying a child? The backlash was immediate. Critics called it toxic feminism dressed in astronaut gear. Women flooded the comment sections, saying things like, "Pregnancy isn't a weakness. It's not something you have to prove yourself through. Motherhood is a miracle, not a shortcoming. What message does this send to my daughter?" Even the host's own framing of the mission rubbed people the wrong way. It wasn't about the women's accomplishments. It was about how good they looked doing it and how grateful they were to their billionaire benefactor for the experience. And here's where it gets even darker. According to the New York Times, a publication not known for conspiracies, they weren't sold on the empowerment narrative either. They published a piece that said this wasn't a feminist milestone. It was male fantasy wrapped in pink ribbon. Think about it. A billionaire in the throes of a midlife crisis sends his fiancée and her influencer friends into space using a rocket shaped like a novelty gag gift. And the media calls it progress? No experiments. No groundbreaking research. No exploration. Just high heels, high cheekbones, and high-altitude selfies. And yet, Katy Perry came back to Earth saying she felt connected to love. Lauren Sanchez said she now sees Earth from a different vantage point. And Katy, after 2 days of training, said she was excited to explore STEM. STEM? After 2 days? That would be like riding a go-kart and declaring you're ready to build a Tesla. But just when you think the mission can't get more delusional, the public's reaction turns savage. Because once the memes started, Blue Origin couldn't hide behind the narrative anymore, and the entire mission turned into a PR disaster. If Blue Origin and Katy Perry expected applause, they got something else entirely: a digital roast session of cosmic proportions. The moment the footage hit the internet, memes exploded across every platform: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit. And they weren't just funny, they were devastating. Screenshots of Katy Perry kissing the ground were captioned. She kissed the earth and she liked it. Others turned the entire flight into a meme template. A group of influencers go on a $100 million roller coaster, pretend they've unlocked the secrets of the universe, and return with nothing but selfies. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. This isn't a space mission. It's a Pinterest board on helium. Another meme showed a photo of the rocket with the caption, "Bezos's rocket is the only thing more inflated than Katy Perry's sense of accomplishment." Then came the motivational quotes, ripped from the post-flight interviews. Go through your whole life not knowing how much love you have until the day you launch. Users were pairing it with stock images of carnival rides and Disney attractions, mocking the overly sentimental tone of what was essentially a very expensive amusement park ride. And yet, somehow, Blue Origin left their comment sections open. Big mistake. Viewers flooded their pages, calling the mission cringe, tone-deaf, and a parody of real science. Many said they were embarrassed that this was being portrayed as female empowerment, while real women in science were being ignored. Others dragged Katy Perry directly. You're not an astronaut, you're a passenger. Taking a selfie in zero gravity doesn't make you a pioneer. Imagine going to space for 4 minutes and coming back thinking you're Carl Sagan. And then came the deeper critiques. People started digging into who really got to go on this all-female mission. Turns out, it wasn't about science. It wasn't about inspiration. It was about clout and connections. Because this space sisterhood, it wasn't open to women in STEM, underrepresented scientists, or students. It was open to Katy Perry and her ultra-wealthy influencer friends. Why? Because they're friends with Lauren Sanchez, and Lauren Sanchez is engaged to Jeff Bezos. Which leads us to the final question. Was this ever really about empowering women? Or was it always about empowering one man's image? By now, the glitter has faded, the hashtags have cooled, and the historic spaceflight is being remembered less for what it achieved, and more for what it exposed. This wasn't about science. It wasn't about pushing boundaries or expanding our understanding of the cosmos. There was no mission, no research, no purpose beyond optics. It was about access, about branding, about taking the world's richest man and using space, one of humanity's most sacred frontiers, as a stage for celebrity spectacle. Lauren Sanchez got her friends on board, the influencers got their content, Bezos got the headlines. And we were all supposed to clap like it was Apollo 11. But instead, the internet called it what it was: a midlife crisis with a launch pad, a billionaire's joyride disguised as empowerment, and a group of celebrities chasing relevance, not the stars. Even the New York Times couldn't spin this as inspirational. They said it best. This wasn't a win for women. It was a Barbie rocket fantasy funded by a bald billionaire with a brand to protect. So, was it fake? Maybe not in the technical sense, But in every other way, spiritually, culturally, and scientifically, this was a performance. A well-funded, heavily produced, choreographed stunt that exploited the language of progress to sell us a lie, because real space travel is grueling. It's dangerous. It's for people who risk their lives to move humanity forward, not to boost engagement on Instagram. So the next time someone tells you Katy Perry made history by going to space for 11 minutes, ask them what she brought back. Because real pioneers return with discoveries, with data, with insight, not TikToks and toy flowers. If you like what you heard, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We drop real talk about celebrity culture, media manipulation, and entertainment's biggest illusions, so stick around. And we really want to know what you think. Was this empowering, or was it just a glorified selfie in orbit? Do you believe this mission was even real, or was it all just a $100 million show? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay sharp.